Welcome to the AQA YouTube channel. To navigate through the video, you can select specific chapters or subjects of the video. Enjoy watching and remember to subscribe.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining today's Community Network meeting to hear all about Parks Victoria and from John Kenwright, who is the Accessibility and Inclusions Coordinator at Parks Victoria. So, as I said, we're recording this video for those who have registered and haven't been able to join us today. So that's good. So before I ask John to start presenting, if anyone's got a question, if they could just write their questions using the chat box, and then we can have a Q&A after John's presentation. Then after that, we have Dave and Lani Ball from AQA's coaching and development team. We'll be talking about wheelchair skills, and so we can hear all about that as well. So it's all exciting today. So John, are you ready to present? I'll spotlight you so you can share your screen and do your thing.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Georgina. Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's great to be here today and catching up with you all and talking about some of the work we've been doing in Parks Victoria to improve access. I thought it might be easiest so I share my screen and I can take you through some of the things that we've been doing in that space. But before I start, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm on, the Wurundjeri people, and pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. And just bear with me and I'll see if I can share my screen. Okay, so so my role in Parks Victoria is, as Georgina mentioned, I'm the Accessibility and Inclusion Coordinator from the Health and Community Activation team, and my work is very much looking at how we can make parks more accessible and inclusive for a diverse range of visitors, but most particularly people with disability. And I'm just going to actually give you an overview of some of the things that we're doing in parks. You may be aware of some of these initiatives, but some of them you may not be. And also, to provide an opportunity for you to ask questions about any particular park information that you may want to answers to. So for those who don't know much about Parks Victoria, we're a state government organisation. We manage around about 18% of the land mass of Victoria. So you can see the map of Victoria, all those green shaded areas are either national parks, regional parks or urban parks that we manage across Victoria. And we also manage a number of urban parks in and around Melbourne, such as Albert Park Lake and Yarra Bend and Gels Park and a number of other ones. So very diverse type of parks that we manage. And also the more iconic ones you may have heard of would be the Port Campbell National Park, where the 12 Apostles are, and the Grampians National Park, and Mount Buffalo National Park, and Wilson's Promontory National Park, and a number of those. Parks Victoria, we also manage the non-commercial piers and jetties of Port Phillip Bay and Western Port Bay, and the waterways manager for the Yarra River and Maribyrnong. And we also manage a number of marine parks and reserves on the coastlines of Victoria as well. So for the last 4 years, Parks Victoria has been implementing a number of actions to try and make parks more accessible and inclusive for visitors with disability. And part of that, sorry, I've got a bit of an echo there for something coming from me. Yeah. We've got been doing a lot of area in the space of not just for visitation, but also putting a number of actions in place for volunteering in parks, and also looking at better ways for employment opportunities at Parks Victoria, and also running programs in the area of health and wellbeing in parks for people with disabilities. So very broad range of actions that we've been doing, and I'll just give you a bit of a snapshot of some of those. So one of the key ones is trying to make our visitor sites more universally designed, so they're more accessible for people with low mobility, and also for people who are blind, vision impaired, etc. So we've got a lot of older visitor sites and a lot of our parks, and so when money becomes available, funding grants become available from government, is trying to upgrade those and really ensure that universal design is actually implemented. So examples of that is sort of upgrading barbecues in a lot of our visitor sites where they're universally designed to enable people in wheelchairs to be able to cook their meat and other things on the barbecue. Putting in more accessible picnic tables and ensuring that we've got paths to those wherever possible, so people don't have to scramble over the grass areas or the rough areas in their chairs. Trying to put more accessible designated parking in our visitor sites, and doing things like improving the number of viewing areas that are universally designed to ensure that people with low mobility can get out and enjoy those. So the picture there at the bottom left is the one that we built about 2 years ago at Mount Buffalo National Park up in the bluff there where the old chalet is, and that's a universally designed one, so it really enables people to get out and see the majestic views of the valley, the Ovens Valley below. So there was a few challenges that drew all the big boulders around there, but we were able to do it, and certainly Parks Victoria is implementing that across our estate that we manage. All Abilities Walks is another one that we're keen to actually improve on, trying to build on a number of All Abilities Walks, both around our urban parks in Melbourne, but also across our national parks and other regional parks that we manage. And so as part of this, also providing information about these walks, so people know where they are and also what the conditions are like on those tracks and where the nearest amenities are. So we produced around 10 short videos earlier this year, and they were filmed by Ryan Smith. Some of you may know Ryan, and he's pictured in these two images. He also has low mobility, and he provides valuable information on those short videos about what the walk conditions are like, where the nearest parking is, amenities, and what sort of features and attractions are on offer on those various walks. So they're available on our website, and hopefully you would find those helpful if you're wanting to check out some walks. The walks are very diverse. Some of them are in our iconic parks, such as Port Campbell National Park for the 12 Apostles, and the other ones are in our urban parks, such as Albert Park Lake, shown in the image there on the left. So with our All Abilities Walks, we're very keen to work with the disability community in designing those. And for example, one of the ones that we did recently was actually a dementia Century Forest and Century Trail. So this is a All Abilities Walk, but it was simply designed for people who are experiencing or living with dementia, where it actually has a number of sensory experiences on offer, such as sculptures and various other things that could actually help provoke memories of what some of the life experiences have had previously in their lives, and also to be able to enjoy and get out in nature with their friends and family. So this is trails at our Wookarong Regional Park, which is one of our new parks in Ballarat. So the walks are very keen to actually build on our All Abilities Walks, but also looking at what people are really wanting when we design these walks. The other work that we've been doing is actually trying to improve inclusive and accessible recreation in parks. Obviously, a number of you are probably actively involved in different recreational activities. It's looking at how we can provide the infrastructure in parks to make that possible. So whether it be canoeing or mountain bike riding or camping or whatever. And it's also us working with community organisations in supporting programs that help make that possible. So one of the examples of that in recent years is Park Victoria had a partnership, or still has an active partnership with YMCA Victoria, and they ran an all-terrain ability skills project for people with low mobility who are in wheelchairs. And that was developing their skills and confidence in using their wheelchairs and other adaptive recreational equipment in park conditions on a lot of the various trails. And it was also doing those through the YMCA camp. So the program went on for a number of months. And as part of that was a camp at Tidal River, where people who participated in the program developed the skills in setting up tents and bush cooking and various other components that people were interested in learning if they went camping out in the park with their partner or friends or family. So we're hoping to get more projects, partnerships like that happening. And as part of that program, YMCA implemented, there was also a series of wheelchair video schools that Dave Ball and Lani were involved in. They're going to talk a bit more about that today's meeting. But that was actually a program that was filmed at Listerfield Lake, where Dave went through a number of different sessions in those videos of teaching people various all-terrain wheelchair skills when they're out in a natural park environment. So I won't talk too much about it because Lani and Dave would be speaking about that. But it's just an example of one of the ways that we're trying to ensure that people can get active out in parks. Camping in parks is a key one, and we've been currently upgrading a lot of our park camping grounds to ensure that there's universally designed visitor facilities in those campgrounds, and also ensuring that there are good campsites for people close to the amenities and having accessible paths to those amenities. So we're upgrading around 40 park campgrounds across Victoria at the moment. So examples of those is Cape Conran Coastal Park in East Gippsland, where we just recently installed new toilet facilities, including accessible toilets and also outdoor accessible showers for those people who have been down to the beach and want to have a shower to get all the sand and stuff off, etc. So it's really increasing those options for people rather than feeling that there's no campgrounds to actually meet their access requirements. The other one is actually providing more accessible beaches, and we've got still a lot more work to do in that space, but actually trying to ensure that visitors with low mobility can get out to some of our beautiful beaches in our coastal parks. And one of the ones is shown here is the Tidal River, Norman Beach, where people come down the Tidal River and can hire a number of beach wheelchairs, or depending on what their requirements are. They can borrow these for free and actually explore beautiful Norman Beach at low tide. This is one of our more accessible beaches because at low tide, there's a lot of good compacted sand. So it makes access a lot easier and makes it a lot easier to get beach wheelchairs over the sand. So there's about 5 different beach wheelchair designs, depending on whether people want to self-propel the chair or wanting or needing somebody to push their chair, and also chairs for children and for people who want to get out into the water as well. So they're available, can be booked online, and they're also you can get them through the Visitor Information Centre there once you're down at Tidal River. Some of you would have been aware of the Trail Rider program, and this has been going in parks for about 7 or 8 years now, where we provide a range of parks where we have these Trail Rider chairs or train wheelchairs. And so they enable a number of visitors with low mobility who want to get out in more wilder sections of parks to be able to use one of these chairs, and they can explore a lot of their trails with their friends or family members. And for those people that don't have enough fit friends or family members to take them out in the chair, we have a Trail Rider volunteer program in parks where they can book these volunteers for nothing. Fortunately, they haven't been going this year due to the COVID, but we're hoping to get that volunteer program happening again early next year. So that program operates in the Grampians National Park and also in the Dandenong Ranges National Park. So Trail Rider chairs are free to book and use, and also the volunteers are as well with their netting assistance. So these chairs can handle a lot of really quite rugged trails, and depending on how many chair operators you have and how fit they are, enables you to get out in some really beautiful places in parks. And we're currently exploring how we can do some overnight treks in parks where people can use these chairs and have overnight stays in accessible eco-pod accommodation in some of our parks. So certainly they've got electric motor on them, so it makes it a bit easier for people to get the chairs up a lot of the steep trails, particularly in the Grampians, for example. And we also manage a number of chairs in partnership with local government. So there's around 12 of these chairs available across different parks across Victoria, depending on where people want to go and where they live. The other one is ensuring that we've got changing places facilities in a lot of our parks. Some of you be well aware of these and some of you may not be aware, but these are facilities designed for people with high personal care needs, where they may need an adult change bench or a ceiling hoist. And so we've been rolling those out in parks, and we've got more planned in the future for additional park sites. And so these enable visitors to be able to extend their stay in parks and also participate in a lot more activities because they've got these amenities that they can actually use. And the standard ones that we have have accessible showers, accessible toilets, as I said, a changing bench and electric change bench and ceiling hoist, and their addition to the your normal standard public accessible toilets. So we've got those at Half a Seat State Park down in Mornington Peninsula, and that's at the bottom of the gondola chairlift there, which is also wheelchair accessible. And we also recently installed the changing place facility at Gels Park, just near Madeline's Cafe there, as part of a new development where we've installed a whole new nature-based children's playscape there, which is all abilities design. We've also got one planned for Tidal River, and we're hoping to get a lot more allocated at other parks as part of that rollout. So for those who haven't seen what inside there, you've got the unique symbol and telling people what they are, and there's a national map of where these changing places facilities are located. So a lot of the councils have these, and a lot of the recreation centres and shopping centres now have them. And so it really is a valuable resource of actually zeroing in on that map if you're wanting to know where the nearest one is for you if you're going out for a day activity somewhere. Park accommodation is another one that we're looking at to try and improve the amount of accessible accommodation available in parks. So at Tidal River, for example, we've got these more recently built units. And one of these is the main unit, which is a DDA compliant unit that not only has accessible bathrooms, but also has a more accessible kitchen area, has a queen size electric bed, and there's a range of bathroom equipment that you can borrow for free, such as shower commode chairs, height adjustable seating for those people who may need that, and also electric mobile hoist if people need to borrow one of those. So that's all available at Tidal River, and we also got some older accessible echo cabins, but they're under the old DDA standard, so they're not quite as well set up as this new unit. And Parks Victoria is currently working on building some new all abilities universally designed accessible accommodation at Cape Conran Coastal Park in East Gippsland. And we're also looking at options for up at Mount Buffalo and a number of other locations. So, and also some more accessible accommodation at Tidal River as well. So the plan is to actually have more of that across parks in Victoria, even though that we don't have a lot of hard roof accommodation in parks. It's really ensuring that there's a lot more options for people to extend their stay. Park access information has been a key one. A number of people with disability had conveyed to us that they would like a lot more information about what the level of access is like the car parking and the paths and the picnicking areas, etc. And so we've been slowly building on that information on a number of our parks, where you can see images of the infrastructure and description of what the trail surfaces is like and what whether there's any steps and things like that. And we're slowly building on that number when resources become available, so people have got a lot more options to choose from, and so they can actually have that information to help make a planned informed choice of where they want to go, rather than getting to visit a site and find that the access is really poor. So this is not only for the park access information, but also providing more information about what the equipment available and other things that may be of interest if going to those parks. It's mentioned we're trying to ensure that all our new children's playscapes, when we're putting new ones in or upgrading old playgrounds, ensuring that they cater for children with additional needs. So it's not just children with sensory disabilities or children who are on the autism spectrum, but also children with low mobility, to ensure that they can play with their peers and explore the various play areas with other children. And we've got some great examples of that. So we've got some great examples of that at Greenbank Park, and also Gels Park, and also up at Alinda and Mount Daniel Ranges. We've got a great kids playscape there. For our waterways,
they get back in the car,
got somebody talking in the background. I hope everybody can hear me. Yep. Improving access to waterways is the key one that we've been working on for a few years now. Trying to ensure that it's making it easier for people who are in wheelchairs to be able to get access to boats if they're going out for recreational activities out in the bay. And so we installed a public hoist down at Patterson River at the boat ramps there at Carra, and that, for those who actually have done the training for that, enables them to actually borrow the key. So if they're ever going fishing with some friends or going out for a day activity in the bay, that they can actually use that hoist. And we hold several inductions a year for people to learn how to use that hoist. And once they've been inducted and competent in using that hoist, they can borrow the key whenever they want. So it's certainly at Patterson River. The other options that we've been working on is providing anchor points for people who've got their own hoists, who want to get out in the boats, and rather than relying on a hoist that may be or may not be available, is having their own where they can use the existing sheaf or anchor point to actually set up their hoist so they can get in the boats themselves. So the image there is of one visitor who brought in a hoist that was provided for him on loan, where he enabled him to get out in the boat and go fishing with his mates out on Western Port Bay. So that's available on their floating pontoon at Tooradin Jetty. And we've also got that at Patterson River at the boat ramps there with these anchor points. And we're looking at rolling them out from other locations in the waterways that we manage. So they're designed for the common Hansa hoist, which is the one shown on the top left image there, which a lot of sailability clubs use. And it's relatively easy to transport, provided that your car's not too small, where you can actually bring it with you and put it back in the car when you're not using it. It's a very quick, brief overview about some of the things that we're doing in parks to make it easier for people with low mobility to get out in the parks. But for further information, if you go to the All Abilities Access page on the Park Victoria website, has a lot more information, because we're really keen to actually build on that. As part of it, we've been doing a number of consultations over the last 5-6 weeks, engaging with the public on what they feel should be the priorities for Park Victoria to focus on to make parks more accessible over coming years. So we've been getting some great information and input from people about what things we should be doing. And I thought this would be a great opportunity, if you haven't had an opportunity previously, to provide input of what things you feel should be a priority for Park Victoria regarding improving accessible parks. So any queries regarding that or questions? Because I've covered a lot there. I might
thank you, John. I'll just check the chat box. Can I remove the spotlight off you now? Yeah,
that'd be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
There was one question that came up in there, Georgina, that I might put to John while you're looking through the questions, and it was sort of someone answered it. With those accessible toilets, do you need the MLAC key to access them?
Yeah, you do. Unfortunately, the reason why we have those is just to keep vandals out.
Yeah.
So we don't want them wrecked. So we certainly, with the Alpha Seat one, there's an MLAC key that's available at the reception area of the chairlift, there, the gondola, that visitors can borrow if they haven't got their own MLAC key. We're hoping to set up a similar arrangement for the Gels Park one, the new facilities there, and but we haven't quite got that set up yet. So at the moment, you need your own MLAC key. But for those that you are not aware of the MLAC key system, any person with a disability can get a key from any master locksmith of an MLAC key. It's a universal disability key that allows you to use a range of public facilities across parks and other venues across Australia. And they're commonly used for liberty swings for children with disabilities, which you may have seen in some parks and other locations. Any other questions?
I'm just looking at the chat box. There's a question from Helen and Ben Johnson to John. Is there a list where all the accessible jetties are situated? Yeah.
No, look, and that's a good point, that we haven't got a list of those at the moment. Most of our jetties are accessible around Port Phillip Bay, because we've been doing a lot of work on those. Certainly St Kilda Pier, for example, is going to undergo significant upgrade work over the next 18 months. And so a lot of work has gone into ensuring that that's going to be more accessible for people using that jetty, and also seeing the penguins at the end of the jetty there at St Kilda Pier. But yeah, most of our jetties are accessible already, but if you discovered jetties that Parks Victoria manages that have poor access, I'd love to know about it, because I can really get onto our local staff to make them aware of that. But at the same time, I'll certainly see if we can try and compile a list of accessible jetties for our website, so you know where they're located.
Yeah, that would be great, John. So there is, I'm just looking at the chat box again, Colin Johansson's mentioned about Lake Mountain having a bike trail suitable for hand cycles. He wants to know if you are involved with that. Yeah,
Lake Mountain are doing some fantastic work there, and some of you may be involved in that project, but they've set up a chapter for Breaking the Boundaries mountain bike group, which is based in WA, to create a hub at Lake Mountain Alpine Resort, where people can use adaptive mountain bikes, and they've set up a mountain bike trail in the resort area suitable for adaptive mountain bikes, such as hand cycles, for example. I've certainly been involved, but it's been very much their project with support from Parks Victoria. We recently just developed a partnership with Matchley, where we've got a trail rider chair going to be based there as well at Lake Mountain Alpine Resort. So for those people who don't want to go hand cycling or can't for a range of reasons, there's going to be the option there of people to explore some of the walking trails in that part of the park using a trail rider chair.
We've got a few more questions and comments. With Helen and Ben Johnson again, they're just asking whether the request for accessible jetties to be put in the disability action plan for the next 4 years that you're working on.
Great. I'll certainly can put that in. One of the key ones is also having a list of accessible places for fishing. I certainly just had recent discussions for fish care on this, because we already started that process. So if people want to go fishing as part of using the jetties, that they know where they can actually go for fishing activities as well that are accessible, so which may not be related to the jetties, and they may want to just use go boating, but just sort of mention that.
Okay, Sean, if you're there, you have a question you want to ask directly, you can go ahead.
Yeah, hi guys. Sorry, I've got no video on this computer. John, well, I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody when I say that being spontaneous is and being able to just get out and go somewhere easily is a benefit to everybody, and that is a barrier also. But I find that going and visiting places, especially down the peninsula in Mornington, there's so many walking tracks that you can't have wheelchair access because of a barrier that starts the track off. Or there's been so many times when I've been walking on or going on a track in a power chair or pushchair, and all of a sudden you get to a gate. And I totally understand that a lot of the times it's to keep motorbikes out, but I was wondering if they've been there a long time. I've approached council about a couple, and they've been amazing. Like, it's been within days. They've changed that opening to be able to be wheelchair accessible. But right along the peninsula is managed by Parks Victoria, and just nothing gets done. The barriers have been there forever, and there'd be 75% of the paths you just can't get a wheelchair through.
Yep. I'd certainly, I'd be keen to follow that up with the park stuff, Sean. I can provide my email address if you've got particular ones that you could point out to me in an email or something. I can
Probably all of them.
It up. All of them. Yep.
Well, I'll link you with Sean. We got his details. I'll CC you in, Sean. So yeah, got the details.
No worries.
Yeah, I know that this is a real difficulty for some of the parks. That I'd certainly what I've been doing over recent years is actually looking at those with the local rangers and saying, well, do we need to have these barriers? Is there other ways to keep dirt bikes? So that's the main reason why they do it, to keep dirt bikes out of the national parks. But as you said, it really then creates a barrier for people in wheelchairs, and also for families with children and strollers as well. It's a particular issue for a lot of our catchment parks. For example, Yarra Ranges National Park, a lot of that park that Parks Victoria manages is Melbourne's water catchment. And so they're quite strict about barriers to stop dirt bikes and four drives getting in. But we've been working on trying to find a solution that enables people with disabilities to get through, but stops dirt bikes out. And one of the prototypes we'd been working on, which was absolute last resort, where we had to have a barrier, is trying to come up with a accessible gate design with an MLAC key that people with disabilities can get through, but it stops people on dirt bikes from getting through. But it's not the ideal solution, but it's something where a barrier for various reasons has to be in place. But I'd love to get people's ideas of if you found a solution, because we looked at a number of designs that allowed gaps for wheelchairs, but when we looked at those designs, it also allowed dirt bikes to get through. And it's but I know it's a big issue, and that we need to actually address it better.
Okay, Helen, are you there? You raised your hand.
Oh, I did, but it was exactly what I was going to say. The MLAC key would be the answer and solution. If we could get a padlock or, something that the MLAC key unlocks to allow the chairs and the specific push bikes or whatever needs to go through for accessibility, that would be the answer.
Yeah. So the prototype that we had at the Redwood Forest initially was, which a number of people in wheelchairs provided input into that gate design, was it swung both ways and had a lock barrel rather than a padlock, so it was a bit easier to getting a key in to the lock. And the expectation would be that the person using that gate would open with the MLAC key and then close it after them, and then they could actually get back out again when they needed. That's been the best design we've been able to come up with so far, and I'm keen to actually get that replicated for a number of parks. But yeah, if you come across any better ideas, yeah, love to see them, so I can actually make our rangers aware of them, because yeah, it's a big issue. There shouldn't be, particularly for all abilities walks. It's pointless for us doing all abilities walks if there's bollards in place that you can't get onto them. But it's also getting our rangers to understand too that there's some great advancements in motorised chairs now, where a number of people can get out on trails that wouldn't normally be possible 10 years ago, and then also trail riding chairs, where a lot of those trails are not all abilities walks, the bulk of them aren't. They're quite rugged trails, so it's getting our rangers to consider that rather than making assumptions that people in wheelchairs are not going to get to this part of the park, for example.
Helen's just suggested another thing, having a swipe card to enable the gates to auto open.
Mm.
Lots of good suggestions, Helen.
Yeah, look, it's certainly a good suggestion, particularly where we've got power. I'm not sure how they work in remote areas when we haven't got mains power, or whether there is a way we can do it with a solar power or something. But that's certainly, we could certainly look at that. We looked at combination type of key-in combination sort of locks and a range of things, but the inlet key system seemed to be the standard easiest one. There's always a danger that it's going to be compromised where somebody's somehow got a hold of an inlet key, but it needs to be done. And the compliance issue is somebody, for example, has got a dirt bike and somehow got hold of an inlet key and getting access to all the catchment, that Park Victoria can deal with that some other way. But it's just having a key and a gate system that's going to be easy to use for people, and as a last resort, not replacing bollards. It's just really looking at every individual circumstance, saying, do we need bollards? Is it really necessary? Can compliance and dirt bike riders be done some other way? But just those situations where once needed is trying to come up with a better solution.
Can I jump in at all? It's
Sure.
Mark here. Sorry, I've been sitting on the side. Sorry, am I overriding anybody?
No.
No, not at all. John, I'm a member of the Wireless Institute of Australia. My incomplete spinal cord damage restricts me from being able to go in long distances. What I'm getting at is I have in my Wireless Institute of Australia connection SOTA, S-O-T-A, Summits on the Air, which involve a lot of the high peaks and national parks. Have you heard of that before?
No, I haven't actually.
No? SOTA on the Air is a thing that was generated through the Wireless Institute of Australia, where we would enter national parks and go and do transmissions to not just local people on our amateur radio, but all over the world. And yeah, it's something that, well, having up to 10,000 maybe, if not more, members in just the association I belong to, we sort of, head out to all those peaks in national parks. And what it does is generate camaraderie between, well, our hobby and whatever disability. We have quite a few aged, we have quite a few disabled members that would love to get out and about. And it's just something I thought I'd mention to you while I had the chance to sort of, sorry to say, add to your list of things to do. That's all, pretty much. Sorry to rush.
No, that's yeah. I'll have to read up on them because I wasn't aware of this group, but yeah. So that's hopefully through the trail rider program and other initiatives, it's going to make it easier for people when there's not a service road to some of those areas in the parks that be other ways to get out there.
That's right. On something as simple as this little thing here, I can talk to New Guinea if I like. But yeah, as long as I'm high enough and be able to get out there enough. But it maybe has made the news in recent days, but one of our fellow members, I must admit, yes, we won't talk about that. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you.
We've got some really good suggestions in the comments. So if has anyone got any other questions that they can verbally ask John, then now is your time. before we move on to Lani and Dave's presentation.
Just add one, Georgina, if I may. When booking the accommodation, is that done through, is there a particular website, or is it through parks with that one in particular in, the name eludes me now, down near the river, the one using the power slide? Slideshow these.
Booking for the accommodation, for example, Tidal River, that's on the Parks Victoria website. So it has a listing of all the accessible accommodation. If you're wanting to see the accommodation in a bit more detail, on that All Abilities Access page that I mentioned, it shows you images of the layout of the rooms, and just so you have a bit more information than just the normal accommodation booking website, which is not that detailed. So, so what was the other part of your question?
Yeah, you've answered it there. Thank you.
Yep.
John, I have a question. Do your parks also suggest somewhere, or your website suggests the different grading levels? Whether, say, grade 1, it's very accessible, grade 2 is somewhat accessible, and certain wheelchairs can or cannot cope with that sort of environment? Do you have that?
Yeah. It's a national trail classification standard that has grading of trails. So the grade 1 trails are your most accessible, and then there's grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, that really rugged remote trails, very limited signage, etc. is grade 4 or grade 5. But we don't have a good listing of All Abilities trails. That's what we're working on and trying to build it. The whole question of accessibility is a difficult one too, because if you say a track is accessible, what does that mean? Is it DDA compliant for the current standards? Does it mean that it's got a certain width and gradient, minimum gradient? So the grade 1s are the ones that we're endeavouring to actually increase the number, because that is the most accessible you can get in outdoor situation. Then there's a grade 2.1, which is those trails may not be designed as an All Abilities trail, but people with motorised wheelchairs, or people who are using a manual chair that have that are being pushed by a very fit person, could handle some of those trails, because they may have a gradient of 1 in 12 in sections rather than 1 in 14, for example, or there may be a ramp alternative to steps. So there's really 2 options there, but it depends on the equipment the person's using, and also whether it's motorised, etc. But the All Abilities grade 1 is the most accessible, and that's very much what councils and Parks Victoria work towards. So it has key guidelines regarding the width to ensure that there's enough passing width for 2 people in wheelchairs, or a wheelchair and a stroller. There's designated guidelines for rest benches at certain intervals, key guidelines regarding signage and the surface of the path, etc. So that's very much what Parks Victoria follows.
Great. Yeah, John, this is more of a personal question. We've got Parks Victoria. So are there similar organisations within all the other states in Australia? The reason I asked is that I'm heading towards Tasmania next year, and there's so many beautiful parks there as well, and wondering whether states talk to each other, whether they have different action plans. Do they try and, make things better for all Australians?
Yeah, look, it is becoming a more of a national approach, and in recent years I've been doing workshops with our counterparts in the Northern Territory and South Australia and whatever. In South Australia Parks, for example, doing some great work there. If you look at their website, they've got some really accessible experiences and information on offer there. Tasmanian Parks have done a bit of work over the years. The problem we've got in national park services across Australia, and it's an issue overseas as well, is that they don't have positions designated for access and inclusion. So sometimes it's not always considered. In saying that, South Australia have now, but New South Wales Parks haven't, Queensland Parks haven't, and certainly Northern Territory Parks and WA parks didn't have it when I last spoke to them. The Trail Rider program has become a national program now, so trail riders are available in some New South Wales parks and also in Tasmanian parks, and also in some South Australian parks. In Northern Territory, we launched Trail Rider Chair to Northern Territory parks a couple of years ago, and they've purchased a couple since then in Tasmania. And so we developed a trail classification system for the Trail Rider chairs as an advisory guide for visitors wanting to use them. So that was a bit of a tricky one. We did trials on about 40 different trails across parks in Victoria, trying to work out what is an easy trail for a trail rider chair and what is a difficult or intermediate trail. And it wasn't so much the chair or the person in it that criteria. Was very much on how difficult it is for the chair operators, and that's so it was a very different way of looking at trail grading and standards. But we've got that grading system for Grampians, and there's an All Abilities Walks and Trail Rider trail guide that you can download on the Grampians webpage for those who are interested in looking into that further.
Beautiful. Thank you, John. Dave, I saw you raised your hand before. Did you unraise it?
I did unraise it because John sort of answered my question, but it's worth bringing up again, I suppose, because certainly with the international standards for accessible accommodation, grade 1 is no steps, and anything else might have a step. And of course, if you're a wheelchair user, that could really stuff you up. So we're limited to the real top end of accommodation for it to be accessible, whereas many people don't actually need all the bells and whistles that come with that level of accommodation. It's a similar thing with the path categorization, and John covered that off with his 2.1, which is it's a bit more challenging than your average path, but it's probably still accessible. And I think talked to John about this when we were at Tidal River about the classification. So I was just going to ask if anything had come of it, and I think by the fact that he has a 2.1, it would suggest that yes, there has been progress on that front.
Yeah, and it's certainly Aspire were involved in discussions for that 2.1 going back about 3 years ago. I think Naz was involved in discussion of what things should be considered for that 2.1 subset. Because for a standard grade 2 trail, a lot of them do have a few steps in them, and so for people in wheelchairs, unless they've got an alternative ramp, they wouldn't be accessible. But there's a number of grade 2 trails that, as I mentioned earlier, could be accessible depending on what equipment you're using, and also the person's fitness, for example. So it is not accessible as a grade 1 trail, but there's a number of ones there for people who are in an electric wheelchair, or somebody who could be get access to those if they've got somebody fit pushing them, if they're relying on somebody to push them in a manual chair, for example. But so that's become a standard grading for both Park Victoria's trails and also for ones in state forest, for example, that DELP manage.
And John, is there any anything in the pipeline to improve steps from an accessibility point of view? So, for instance, some people in wheelchairs will be able to negotiate one step, and if you've got your flight of 3 or 4 steps, whatever it is, on your trail, if that's spread out over individual steps that are big enough to get a wheelchair onto, then people will be able to go one way or the other. Has there been any thought in improving trails that way?
Probably not at the moment. I think there certainly has been a lot of discussion about for people who are blind vision impaired regarding steps to ensure that they're more well defined and that wherever possible there's grab railing, etc. But not for people in wheelchairs. So, for example, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a lot easier if there's not a huge cluster of steps, and if their landings are longer, it's a bit easier to tackle one individually rather than a staircase, yes, obviously. Yep. But yeah, we haven't had it's something that we should consider, and it's certainly a good point.
Because that might open up, you might have, I don't know, 100 trails that have got 3 steps in them, and therefore they don't fall into the 2.1 category. But if that could be modified, we might end up with, I don't know, maybe 5 of those trails being accessible or more accessible. So it's not for everyone, and certain power chairs can do a step in the way you've described, and certain manual chairs can do it. So it's definitely not for everyone, but it might open things up and just provide that a bit of additional.
Yeah, look, it's certainly come up an issue for trail rider trails as well, is that trail riders can handle a number of steps, but again, if there's a decent sized landing for each step, it's a lot easier for a trail rider chair to get down, but also it's a lot easier getting down the steps rather than going up the steps in a trail rider, because essentially the chair has to be lifted like a stretcher, so it's not a safe option for both the person in the chair and obviously for the operators as well. So yeah, I think it's a good point. I'll see if I can follow that further.
Great question, Dave. So if there's no more questions, we might jump onto Lani's and Dave's presentation. Is that okay, Lani? You want to start your presentation? Sorry, Naz?
John, I was just going to say that was a great presentation. Thanks for that. The slides, are they going to be shared at any stage, or wonder?
Look, I can share those if you're wanting a copy of that. Yeah.
Well, just in case anyone asks, it'll be good.
Yeah, no, yeah, be happy to.
Great, thank you, John. I'll make sure I'll include it in a follow-up email to everyone with some of the suggested websites that Helen's shared with us throughout the presentation. Thank you, it's been wonderful. All right, so we might start with Lani. I'll spotlight you so you can share your screen, etc.
Excellent, thank you very much. Lovely to see some familiar faces. There's also a lot of new ones. Just to introduce myself, my name's Lani Ball. I'm in the lived experience team at AQA, and I lead coaching and development there. And one of the projects I'm involved with at the moment is finding different ways that we can increase the skills of independence for our community, providing people with the opportunity to further develop their skill set. In order to be able to enjoy these different locations that have been shared with us by John, some of us might want to increase our skill set so we're able to access them and get around. And John, thank you very much for sharing those flashback photographic memories that Dave and I have had the opportunity to share there with our daughter. That was wonderful. So what Dave and I will be sharing with you today is some information about just information on Dave first. So Dave is one of the specialist peer trainers that's being involved in the programs that we're running. He teaches wheelchair skills. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the sessions that we're running at AQA, and he's going to talk to you a bit about the videos that were put together at one of the Parks Victoria location. And then I'm keen to find out a little bit of insight from this group that we've got here today, what people might be interested in doing in the future together. So if you'd like to unspotlight me, please, Georgina, and put it on Dave, that would be awesome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
G'day, Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave. As Lani said, I had my spinal injury 27 years ago, and I'm T5, T6 complete. I've been teaching wheelchair skills for over 20 years. About 15 of that was in the UK with the Backup Trust. And then since we've been here in Australia, I've been teaching on the sessions that John mentioned at the YMCA camps, and with Skills for Independence and AQA for the sessions we've been doing at the AQA Centre, and also down at Camp Mannion, and we did some at Camp Mount Eliza as well. So the wheelchair skill sessions can be tailored to whatever you're really looking for. So we can start with the really basic stuff. Make sure you're sitting in a chair properly. Make sure you're pushing correctly and efficiently, and then we can work that all the way up to how do you tackle a flight of stairs if you have to. And my key suggestion there is you find an alternative way, but if not, then we can look at how you would actually get up and down a flight of stairs. So it's really quite a range of skills that you can learn, and we work on transfers as well. So if you want to improve your transfers onto your couch or into your car or into the shower or whatever you feel you need to improve on, then we can work on that. So we really like to try and tailor these sessions, particularly the showcase sessions that we're holding at the AQA office at the moment, and refine it and make sure that we try and have people with the same skill set, the same ability together. So we've got like-minded people can learn from each other at the same time. And in the future, one thing we'd really like to do is take this on the road and go around to sort of more regional places where people can't necessarily make it into the office in Melbourne, and try and catch up with people that way.
Excellent, thanks. And Dave, can you talk people through the video of wheelchair skills that were done at Listerfield Lake, one of the Parks Victoria locations?
Sure. So this was a project that we did in collaboration with the YMCA and Parks Victoria, and it was all about getting people out into the bush where they've got mobility issues. So we spent a few days planning it. We spent a couple of days on site shooting, and then an awful lot of days in post-production trying to make sure that we came up with the best set of videos that were concise and showed the skill set that people need to work their way through it. So I suppose the videos are sort of 3 to 5 minutes long, so it's very difficult to teach someone online how to do something in such a short period of time, but it gives you a snapshot of how to do things, and also just how to tackle obstacles with or without help, depending on your level of ability and your skill set. So if you watch those videos and you'd like to improve your skills, you can come to us via Lani and book yourself in for a session, and we can work through improving whatever you feel you might want to do.
Excellent. I'll also add to that I've got a little clip that I can share with you. It's just a little intro to the wheelchair skills, and more of these clips can be found on the YMCA website, and I will shortly put a link of that into the chat. Now, I just want to totally acknowledge that the wheelchair skills that are covered in the YMCA, it's not necessarily suitable for people who are coming in at sort of entry level using their wheelchair. What we are offering is the opportunity of doing some wheelchair skills sessions with us, so you can increase that to maybe a point that you might feel as if you're comfortable in trying some of the things that are included into the videos here. I also want to mention that it's not currently acknowledging power wheelchair skills. Something that we're looking to do at AQA is developing power wheelchair skills training. And if it's something that you want to get involved with, either as helping to design it, or whether you'd like to be a participant and get together with like-minded individuals, please do send me an email. I'd love to get you involved. You can send an email to the community@aqavic.org.au email address. So I'm just going to share my screen now and just show you, I think it's only around about a minute long, just an introduction to those wheelchair skills that were shot at Listerfield Lake. So you should currently see a black screen, is that correct?
Yep.
Excellent.
The purpose of this series of videos is to show people how to get out and about in their wheelchairs in the bush and you're getting back to nature. The aims are to give people more independence, and by independence we don't mean doing everything yourself, we mean knowing how and when to ask for assistance. We will highlight common obstacles you might come across and tips and hints on how to get past them. Key points to remember: On larger wheels, roll over obstacles more easily, and weight distribution is key to getting about on different surfaces.
I'm going to stop sharing now. So that's just a little taster, and there's a series of, is it around about 5, Dave? 5 different videos?
Yes.
So
Yes. One thing I would say there, that was very staccato for me. It was very stop and start. It wasn't a smooth play on my machine. I don't know if everyone suffered from the same issues, but I think if you were to go to their website and view them from there, you might get a better experience if that was an issue that you were having.
I've just shared that into the chat, the link to that website, so you'll be able to explore that in your own leisure.
Thank you.
Excellent. I'm also going to share another screen.
So just before you move on, Lani, can I just say that with the wheelchair skills showcases that we do some practice of skills that you want to hone within the AQA office, and then it's a little bit weather dependent, but unless it's absolutely chucking it down with rain, we can go out into the community and practice in a safe environment, just tackling obstacles that you might find in your day-to-day life, be it a curb crossing the road, or getting to the train station, or on the train, or variety of challenges that people find in their chairs.
Excellent. Thank you. And can you see that I'm sharing my screen?
No. We can see you. Oh, here it comes. Yep.
How about now?
Yep.
Excellent. So we have coming up next week a couple of sessions that are still available. It's around about 2 to 4 wheelchair users within a group. You're encouraged to bring along a buddy. So that could be a family member, or a friend, or it could be a support worker, it could be allied health professional. It's up to you. If you really don't have someone to come along with you, then I can look at providing somebody to provide you with support. So we provide you and also your buddy with the opportunity to learn skills about how you might be able to do things more independently and feel more comfortable and safe doing it. And in situations that you're unable to do something, or you don't feel comfortable in doing it yourself, we can also support you in working out how you might be able to exercise your verbal independence, and asking somebody to support you the way that you really need them to, so you feel well supported and safe. I'm not quite sure, this is a little bit of an experiment, but I'm not quite sure whether you can see that QR code on the screen. If it is something that you could see, you could hold your camera up to it, and you can you can fill in a form that will let me know that it's something that you're interested in, and I can contact you to sign you up for a particular course. Alternatively, you can call me at the AQA office. So yes, we're running it on Thursday, Friday and Saturday next week. If you're interested, let us know. I'm more than happy to have a chat to you about it. The other thing that we wanted to ask the group about is we acknowledge that not everybody can come to the AQA office, and maybe people have an appetite of doing something a little bit different. And with the help of John Kenwright, he will help facilitate the opportunity for us to go into a Parks Victoria location where we could run wheelchair skills session for you. We could do a bit of a social event, but we kind of want to know what people have got an appetite for, so we know whether it's something worthwhile putting together. Any comments from the group?
Lani, can I just ask a question to Dave?
Yes.
Hi, Dave. It's John Coomer here. Dave, look, I've been in the chair for 40 years, and I would say that probably every 5 years I've changed the way I do something. You know, either, you know, you regain some strength, you lose some strength, like me, you get older. But one thing that's been fantastic is technology. You know, the introduction of smart drives and free wheels and things like that. In your training sessions here, is that an element that's introduced, like some of the new technologies that are out there?
Some of the video sessions that we did with the Y. So there's a video there that talks a bit about adaptive technology, but we tend to concentrate more on the mechanics of how to do things and the techniques for it. So less about aids, just about how to do it most efficiently. Okay. So if you had a step to get up, for instance, you know, rather than having some power device to help you up the step, how can you get up that step on your own, or how would you, you know, get your buddy or your family member or a member of the public who happens to be passing by to assist? So it's more about the dynamics of how to do it rather than having an adaptation. But what I would say, following on from that, is I feel that every day is a school day. So every time I run a session, I will learn something new. I'll learn a new technique from someone. I'll learn how to teach someone slightly differently because they're not understanding the way I've been teaching something. Every session I will learn something. So it's
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. So feel free to either unmute or put some comments into the chat box of any ideas that you might have about something that you would like to see run for you.
I have a question, Lani. You've got the times there for the December wheelchair skills training sessions.
Yes.
Are you thinking of running these on a monthly basis?
Next year, it'll be either monthly or bi-monthly. It kind of depends on what the appetite is really of the group. We're currently under development for next year's calendar. And if people want to be informed of what's coming up, again, send me an email and I'd be more than happy to keep you in the loop.
Great, thank you. We might include this flyer in the email I send to everyone so they can scan on that thing that you were talking about.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, so there's lots of things to include. We've got websites, we've got presentation slides, we've got all those links in the chat box, some videos. Yeah, so we'll be sharing all those things in a follow-up email to everyone.
Yeah, brilliant. Any ideas that anyone has? Yeah, please reply email to that and share them.
Dion's mentioned he's been to Listerfield Lake and he found it hard with his skill set. So,
so I'd be interested to see, Dion, have you watched the YMCA videos?
Yeah, I've watched it. Yeah.
Okay. Did that make a difference to your how you tackled things when you were at Listerfield?
Yeah. Plus, it was one of the first warm days, so it was a bit of the heat, and just my support person, not used to that type of support in that terrain, which made it a little bit harder. And you know my wheelchair setup, so yeah, a free wheel would help on some of those tracks there. It's a matter of going there more often and giving it a go. You know what I mean?
And educating your support worker.
Yeah.
So yeah, assistive technology seems to be something that a lot of people are considering, particularly if they have some funding and they would like to venture out to parks, places where they thought they, just could never get access to. So yeah, things like smart drives and free wheels. Yeah, so that's another thing to consider is the funding. But also, I saw that Helen mentioned that there's a couple of caves that are accessible. I was like amazed when I saw that in the chat box. I thought caves not accessible, don't even look at that.
Yeah, it's Buchan Cave, and they've got this it's a wheelchair step down the steps into the cave, and I don't know how often it operates, but I was wondering if maybe John could answer that, but I think he's gone, isn't he? Is he gone? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, it's I've sent the link. It's on the ABC advertised it, but I couldn't find it anywhere on Parks Victoria's website, but it used to be there. So I don't know now whether they've taken it away or, but yeah, it's quite exciting.
Yeah, we seem to have lost John. But yeah, I can ask him that question, definitely. Is there any more questions for Lani and Dave? John's gone, so no more questions for John.
I've got a question for the group. Do you, for those people who are, oh, John's back again. For people who are considering different types of assistive technology, do you have access to see or experiment with these pieces of equipment to make an informed choice about what you might like?
I guess personally, it's something that I've requested. I got a free wheel a couple of years ago because I was traveling overseas and I knew I would need it, going into old cities with cobblestones, and I thought it'll make my holiday a lot more pleasurable. But also, yeah, it's talking to your physiotherapist or occupational therapist, exercise physiologist, and basically getting a letter stating that it's a piece of equipment that you require. If you're on the NDIS, they're aligned to your goals. And yeah, so I guess it's those sorts of people that you need to talk to and also to trial them as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if people were interested in us putting on some sort of event, we could invite different suppliers to come along with equipment so you can sort of check it out, see how it works, ask a whole lot of questions, and chat with others. They might bring along their own equipment too, and they can share with you from their own first-hand of experience about what's worked well for them and maybe what hasn't worked well.
Sounds like a great idea, Lani. I think there are various options out there, and sometimes it's hard to decide, and somebody may prefer like a certain wrist type watch that you would need for a power assist, where others, would hate that idea. And so just trialing different pieces of equipment in one setting, all in one go, sounds like a really good idea.
And
so
again,
maybe, go Dave.
We do touch on this in one of the videos for the YMCA. It certainly doesn't cover everything. There's no smart drive in there, so I couldn't comment on how a smart drive might be useful at somewhere like Listerfield Lake, for instance. But it just gives you a bit of a snapshot into the sort of things that might be available, and then you can do your research onto that or speak to your OT to get a steer on where to go and what might be more suitable for you.
Lani, I think it's a good idea to have people that have actually, like I've had my smart drive for about 5 years now, and I would not recommend it for some other people that I know in chairs, but I'd recommend it for others because, it depends on your balance, it depends on a lot of things. So, you talk to a salesman, they'll go, yeah, look, no worries, try it, let's go, it looks great for the first day, first hour. But I think having people that have used it for several years is probably a good idea to pull in also, just to give some gotchas. It's thrown me to the wall a few times, but otherwise it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Good point, John. Thank you.
Helen, you raised your hand and now you've unraised it.
Yeah, it was getting a bit noisy, but it's quieting down a bit now. I was just going to mention that all OTs have got access to a site for second-hand equipment.
Right.
And, they can always borrow that second-hand equipment for people to try if you don't want to buy. But also, as you say about the salespeople, we always meet them at the stores and then go through and trial it with our son. And we've got a beach hippo cam, so I don't know if you guys, we do the beach all the time and we do the water all the time and we're in a boat a lot. And so, yeah, that's what we've got a beach hippo cam, which does a really great job on the beach and on the rocks even. So, yeah, that's why I was talking about wheelchair mats. We're really great. There were more mats out there in the beaches. But yeah, there's a site that all OTs have got access to second-hand equipment, because there's a lot of equipment that goes into that pool because people no longer want it.
Good.
Thanks, Helen. Any other questions for either Dave or I? That's fine. if there's something that pops up, feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Thanks very much for having us today. All right.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Lani.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Bye.
you coming in.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Is John
Thank you.
there?
It's all very nice.
Fantastic. All right. I guess there's no more questions for John, but if there's any more questions, please send us an email and we'll forward them on. I'll share all those links, as I mentioned. And yeah, so I don't know if anyone's got any more questions, and this is your time, because I think we're almost to the 1.5 hours now. So it's been really great. Fantastic.
One thing I will mention, that we have an inReach satellite texting device that when we go off out of range, should we need medical support or whatever, which could happen at any time. Yeah, so we actually get that funded through the NDIS, and a lot of people don't realise that it's a texting system though. It's not a phone call as such. But I get support workers, even if we go away and they want to talk to me, they can text as well to that area, and when I get into range I can then know that they've texted me. So there's just all these opportunities so you can go and live the world in nature.
I've never heard of that, Helen. That's amazing. So it's
inReach. It's through inReach satellite device. I call it a phone, but it's not a phone because you can't ring. You have to only text. But you can ring emergency services. That's what you can do, or text the emergency services for helicopters or ambulance or whatever.
It's an EPIRB.
It's an EPIRB. It's an EPIRB as well, so they can also find you. Yeah.
RFDS.
Well, you've shared so much, Helen. Appreciate all your advice and all your information. Thank you so much. And also John and everybody that's participated and joined in the discussions.